Welcome to The Line. Bernalillo County's new district attorney, Raul Torres, he announced last week that his office would not retry former APD officers Keith Sandy and Dominique Perez for that 2014 shooting of that homeless camper, James Boyd. Now, where do you stand on the decision not to retry this case? Get in touch with us here by visiting NewMexicoInFocus.org or find us on Facebook or Twitter. Now, I'm joined at the table this week by Tom Garrity. He's from the Garrity Group PR. Stephen Spitz, good to see him back, host of New Mexico People, Places, and Ideas on KONM. Love you, dude. Laura Sanchez-Rivey, an attorney at Cuddy & McCarthy, LLP. And Rachel Sam, she's editor-in-chief of Albuquerque Business First. Now, welcome to you all. 2 years ago, the decision by then DA Kerry Brandenburg to try officers Perez and Sandy for murder made them the first APD officers to face charges in about 50 years. But when that case went to trial, the result was Laura Sanchez-Rivey, a hung jury. Now, here's the fundamental question. Did Mr. Torres make the right decision here in not trying this case again?
Well, I think based on his approach, which I think is an important one to consider, you know, he selected 6 other prosecutors to review the case in detail. You know, he had his own folks also review the case. He considered, I think, what the jury had come back with in the previous case, as well as just the limited resources that the county has at this point moving forward. I think in context of all of that, it makes a lot of sense that he made this decision, and he made it quickly, which I think is important. It could have dragged on much longer. He's only been in office now for a little over a month, or 2 months now. So I think that it was a sound decision, but I think what's important too is that he didn't come out and you know, say that what they did was okay. He didn't condone their behavior. He didn't applaud what they had done. He was very clear about that he had made a decision based on what was before him, based on what the evidence was, and on the likelihood of being able to have a successful outcome if they put that much resources and time into it. So I think that's important. He also took time to meet with the victim's family.
Before he made the announcement.
Right, before he made the announcement. And then, you know, what I found really impressive too is that the overall coordination in terms of the announcement. You know, they shut down the DA's office and they closed the courts early that day in anticipation of potentially having people not take the news very well, that there wasn't going to be another prosecution of this case. So there was a lot of preparation that went into it, and it was a coordinated effort with the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. So I think in that sense it was a lot of forward thinking, sort of preparing for the worst but hoping for the best. And overall, I think even though there's, I'm sure, a lot of people who are unhappy with the decision, at least it puts a final, it, you know, closes this chapter. And I think his words as far as making sure that APD learns from this mistake, and as a community, we take more seriously the issues with homelessness in this community, I think is important.
Mentally ill specifically, he mentioned. That was interesting. Stephen Spitz, he also had somewhat of a compliment, not purposefully, to his predecessor, Kerry Brandenburg, by saying, look, we see nothing more here than the previous folks prosecuted that would make this result any different. Do you see what I mean? Does that help quell the situation down a little bit, saying, look, this was the trial. A new trial will reveal nothing more than what we all saw before.
You know, Gene, you started with the question, where do you stand? All of us have seen that video. Every viewer has seen that video, and we all have a view of where we stand. I have one. But I actually kind of agree with Laura, and I take your point that, you know, Randy McGinn, she was a very accomplished trial lawyer. We were very lucky to get her on that case, only because Brandenburg was conflicted out, was she brought in. She's a top-notch criminal lawyer. And one of the things that Mr. Torres said was, you know, we're not going to get a better trial lawyer to try our case. So how do we get a better outcome from the prosecution point of view? And there were no mistakes that I remember that she made. No, the press never talked about any major mistakes that she made. So then you have to look at the jury and the jury pool, I think. And that's one of the things we did. You know, when I did civil litigation, we would look at this extensively, and you would look. In this particular case, the jury was 9-3 for acquittal after an excellent trial by
9 being not guilty.
Yeah. Right. 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 So you look at the jury, the actual jury. You look at the possible jury pool. You can do polling. Tom could probably talk about this. You can do polling to see what the attitudes were, or you can, as a prosecutor, have a good sense of what the attitudes might be. And you can see if maybe you could get a better jury or a more favorable jury. So you have that. And then you could also sort of play around with, one of the things we used to do was mock juries. We would emphasize different things. We would use different words in the mock jury. I would take our side and another guy in the firm would take the other side, and we would play around with it. And I sort of imagine they did all these things. So I would say from a practical point of view, whatever your view is of the actual wrongful act, it was probably a good decision, and the prosecution should not be prosecuting people where they don't think they can win. That's a very not good public policy.
There you go. And Rachel, as Laura says, there's limited resources, which includes emotional resources.
Right.
Right? I mean, who wants to get into this again? Although for the families of the victims, once again, they might feel a little bit left out of this process, like is anyone taking care of us here? But again, for the community, timing is everything. We need to, some other things we need to take care of in our community, certainly. What's your thought about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Torres's public statements on this as kind of a recognition of the fact that it's helpful to remain just calm and neutral and focus on the judicial facts around it, because the issues, the larger issues, the social issues around this case aren't going away. We're still going to have to deal with the use of force in our community by police, and we're still going to have to deal with the holes in the safety net for the mentally ill and how that's affecting our streets. And now we're hearing at the federal level that that Attorney General Sessions is saying that there may not continue to be DOJ oversight of police departments and their use of force. So our community is going to have to find some path forward.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually a key point there. Tom, interestingly, there's a thought out there that this case actually was very successful for a couple of reasons, meaning that we have had very much fewer officer-involved shootings in our community. We've had SWAT not fire their weapon at all, as a matter of fact, in a recent period of time. Would you agree with that? Has the community won out somehow from this case, even though, you might have wanted justice for these two officers? Something seems to have changed for the city.
Yeah, the community is more informed. Whether the community won out or not, I think that's up for debate based on what your perspective is of law enforcement. But when it comes to the community wanting insights as far as what happened, remember 3 years ago when this happened, there just weren't a whole lot of answers that were available. And so as things move forward, as the case moved forward, insight, those facts started filling up that news bottle, and the accusation went to speculation, to clues, and eventually that news bottle was filled with fact. The other, if there is an upside for law enforcement, we're seeing some signs of that just as far as statewide perceptions of law enforcement. Law enforcement, has had their highest level of trust at 55% this year, according to our 2017 survey. Up from 3 years ago of 38%. So, whether it's this case,
that's a big difference,
or a lot of outreach that's been done by law enforcement, people are trusting them more. Whether they trust them 100% is still remains to be seen.
That's right. We've got about a minute and a half, Laura. I want to talk about Mr. Torres and his, where you started us off in this conversation. Give me your sense of his assessment of how he handled this whole situation and what that portends moving forward for this new DA.
Well, I think he's a very thoughtful person. I mean, he's had experience at the federal level as a prosecutor, at the state level also, and I think that he went in with a plan. So it wasn't sort of a knee-jerk reaction. He knew this was a very high-profile issue, and obviously there was going to be a lot of pressure on him. I think it was smart to have other prosecutors who were seasoned, experienced, from other jurisdictions that weren't necessarily entrenched in the issues on a day-to-day basis necessarily here, and review it from a sort of take a step back and review all of the issues to give him some advice. I thought that was a good approach. It signals to me that he's definitely going to try to take a very thoughtful approach to things, try to plan things in anticipation. I mean, I'm very impressed at the fact that they anticipated potential blowback from the community, given that there had been protests before. At various times, and it had turned violent at times. There had been property damage. I think it's important to recognize that there was a lot of preparation that went into it and a lot of coordination with the law enforcement.
In the 20 seconds I have with you, combine also Mr. Torres' stance on the backlog of cases that are out there. We saw it famously in the Journal a few weeks ago, the picture with all the boxes of all, that has to be attended to. Do you feel like he's going to get after this?
Well, I think that the fact that he recognized, you can't accomplish everything in a new administration, obviously, and he had to have considered the amount of resources it was going to take to prosecute this case versus taking those resources and applying them to that backlog.
That's right.
And I think he has effectively made a decision there that that backlog is important, and it's important for all of the people involved in those cases that we move forward.
It's his first public pronouncement, basically,
Absolutely.
is I'm going to clean up this mess. So we'll have to leave it there. When we come back to the line, we'll look at some state legislation that didn't make it this year.